Welcome to the Grit.org podcast with Colby Harris and Brian Harbin. In these episodes, they speak to top achievers in athletics and business to understand the habits and mindset they apply in order to build more grit.
Welcome back to the Grit.org podcast. My name's Colby Harris. Alongside me is Brian Harbin, and we're here today with our guest, Arrelious Benn. Arrelious, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So Arrelious was actually a 2010 NFL draft pick, spent 6 years in the NFL. 8 years in the NFL, had an incredible stint with the Jaguars. We have him here today to discuss his passion of sports and then eventually becoming an entrepreneur and the launching of his coffee business, Social House. So Arrelious, take us back to your upbringing in D.C. and really what made you pick up sports at a young age?
Sports, well, growing up in inner city Washington D.C., second oldest of 5 boys, and sports has always been sort of an outlet and just something that can bridge a gap to get in somewhere and getting out of the city, the city life, and just trying to find something outside of knowing myself, and just that was the only way out for us at the time. Just sports actually. Sports have definitely taken my life to a plateau that I never thought that I would be in certain situations.
And thinking about having brothers too, I have 2 older brothers. I'm not sure exactly what your spread is with you, but what role did that play? Not only just trying to progress yourself and find the route out, but having that group to not only compete with each other, but also pick each other up and look out for each other.
Well, it was a competitive household, you know what I mean? And I think that is something that helped driven actually all of us. All of my brothers play sports, and like I said, I'm the second as oldest of 5 boys. But as far as, just having boys and everything in the house, it made us competitive. We helped each other out, just being resilient, and then learn how to be competitors, learn how to win, learn how to lose. You know what I mean? That was definitely an upside growing in the house with 5 boys.
Had to look out for the younger brothers too.
Yeah, we had to, but we wasn't, too, easy on them. We wanted to be rough on them and
hold them to a higher standard.
Yeah, that's just the boys mentality, especially with a group of boys.
Yeah.
Now, was it always football, or what were some of your early love in sports early on?
It was predominantly football. My actually first love in sport is soccer. But soccer wasn't a sport that was predominantly played, and it wasn't any AAUs or anything like that to support in my area growing up in D.C. But it was predominantly football and basketball, and I just took to football like that. It was just natural. My dad was actually a basketball player. He was really good at basketball. A lot of people thought I was going to take that route, but football seemed to be the thing for me, and just being recruited ever since I was in the 9th grade, receiving my first scholarship. So
you played with pads. What age did you start with pads?
At the age of 6. So I've been playing football since I was 6. I'm at the age of 34 now. We started with pads, full contact football at that time, and I would say I transitioned from flag football into pads at the age of 6, and then obviously went to middle school, high school, college, so forth.
And was there a point that you had to make that decision to go all in on football, or did that happen in middle school or before you got into high school? Where did that decision come that you were like, all right, football's the one, that's where I'm going to stick to?
Like I said, when I first got my first scholarship to Penn State, having Joe Paterno come to my high school in the 9th grade and giving me a scholarship, that was like, wow. And that's something that I knew, if I keep at it, more will come. Well, on top of that, being in D.C. at the school that I was at was a predominantly football powerhouse, and we had the likes of Vernon Davis, Vontae Davis, Josh Cribbs, myself, and a few other guys that come out of there. So it was already, kind of mapped out for us to follow this regimen to get us to where we want to get. We want to have D1 scholarships and this, that, and the other. For us, it was kind of like, hey, we can't go Division II or anything like that because we know where we're trying to get, and our end goal was the NFL. Yeah. So it was eat, breathe, sleep football.
Yeah. Were there any other things that you feel like, obviously there was a culture is what it really sounds like, very football-based culture. Were there some other things that you think helped you get recruited by those schools? I mean, you were a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, so were there some certain things you did that you believe helped you get that certain notoriety?
Absolutely. I would say academics, you know what I mean? Knowing how to carry yourself, being being true to yourself, and it's a lot of things that can take you and push you and grab you and tug you in a lot of places with football. And I think for me personally, I say the way that I carry myself, always been a leader, just leading by example pretty much. And that's something that I had to do as being the second oldest of 5 boys.
Now, were you always a receiver, or how did you come to figure out that was your specialty?
I actually started out as a quarterback, and my high school coach wanted me to play defense and just be a jack of all trades, because at that time, the more you do, the more you're going to get looked at. And, this school might offer you to play receiver. This school might offer you to do this. I remember my senior year, Texas wanted me to play safety. And I was like, man, I love the University of Texas, but safety wasn't the, position that I wanted to play at the time. And, just Illinois, being as though a receiver, they needed a receiver, just want to make a big splash and just make plays. So
yeah. So I'm curious. So walk us through, I guess, how many different schools you were talking to, and then how you narrowed it down to Illinois.
Well, a lot of schools. I had over 50 offers coming out of high school. Being a number 1, number 2 receiver in the league, depending on whoever rates it. That was something that was very demanding situation, having to choose a college. That was one of the hardest decisions for me, leaving D.C. I had the University of Maryland at home. I had so many, people around the city that wanted me to go to the University of Maryland and just bring that program back up with Coach Friedgen. But I just took a leap of faith. Ron Zook and Mike Loxley showed up to my house one day and told me about Illinois. And at the time, I didn't even know what Illinois was. They wasn't on my radar or anything like that. That was a basketball school, But Mike Loxley believed in me, and he told me, hey, I'm trying to get you somewhere, and this, that, and the other. And it was just a full-on relationship from there. And I really trusted those guys, and it really helped that Mike Loxley was also a D.C. guy. And, he had Vernon Davis, and he had other guys ahead of me, so I already knew this was a template for me to get to where I wanted to get to.
Mm-hmm. So over 50 offers. You got these random coaches showing up at your front door. You're leaving D.C. for the first time. What advice would you give to someone else that's a high-level recruit navigating this process? What stood out to you going through that made the process a little bit easier to make a decision?
Well, now I'm pretty sure it's kind of crazy for the guys now. They have the NIL. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school and going into college,
probably would have killed for that.
Yeah, I would have loved to have the NIL stuff, but back then we'll get in trouble if somebody bought you a slice of pizza. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So,
that was around LeBron's huge scandal too, with the Hummer and all that stuff.
Yep. And Maurice Claret, remember Maurice Claret with all the things that he went through at Ohio State. I remember AJ Green went through the issue where he sold his college jerseys and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, guys are really doing that now, driving on campus with expensive cars and having access to a lot of money. But, we were struggling. Like, we went through college struggling, this, that, and the other. But the advice that I would give to guys now is, it's an awesome situation because they get an opportunity, I feel like, to, try their hand at being a professional in college early. So whatever mistakes that you're going to make as a professional, you have the opportunity to make it in college. Mm-hmm. And you can make up for it and have a different type of perspective on your professional career.
Yeah, I love that. And so take us back to, playing in college. What were some of the things that you feel like really you learned, developed, some of the key takeaways or some of the highlights of playing
in college?
Yeah.
I would say, going to Illinois and, they would say, and Coach Loxley and Zook would tell me, hey, you come be a big fish in a small pond. Why go to Alabama? Why go to Notre Dame? Why go to Florida State? Where you could have a legacy where you're changing the program around, and it could be something that you could lead on for years and years, and nobody forget that. You'll just be another guy. But I think the thing that in college that was like awesome for me is just being around great people at Illinois. And these are some of the people that I still talk to today, and the type of friendships that I've happened to have and develop and just bridge at Illinois was pretty huge for me. And just going to a school where, football wasn't looked at, and to see what the program is now, just knowing that I was a part of that, and it's just like, man, it feels good,
And diving into the decision to go pro, you went pro after your junior year. So was that something that presented itself to you, or how did you get the notion that, hey, I can enter the draft, I can get drafted after my junior year? And would you make that decision again if you were in the same place?
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, that was like my, plateau in my trajectory to go pro, and everything that I did, sacrificed a lot, taking classes in the summer, this, that, and the other. But I left my junior year, which I look back and reflect on it. I'm like, man, I was in the NFL 3 years after high school, and I didn't know much anything right there. All I knew was how to play football. And just now, just trying to figure out, what do you like to do outside of football, the passion and this stuff like that, and, what do you want to do, and, where you left off at football. And I think just overall, like, I would do it all over again. You know what I mean? Just entering the draft like that, and that was always the thing. I worked out for it, and I had a lot of support.
What was the biggest transition you feel like you had to make going from playing in the college to NFL?
The biggest transition is finding time to do with your time. You know what I mean? As far as, when you're in college, you have a set schedule. You have classes, you got chow hall, you got workouts, like everything is set up for you. As a pro, you don't have that. You may have your practice, you're getting into work. It's almost a 9 to 5. So what do I do in my downtime when I go home? Am I still being a pro, or am I being a 21-year-old kid? So that was like some of the things and, some of the challenges that every guy goes through as far as, all right, this is what I want to do with my time. This is how I need to be better, reflect on it, and let me put it all together and just see it flourish.
Yeah. No, I mean, and let me ask you too, in terms of everybody's good, everybody's athletic, but what do you feel like were some of the things, controllable things that you feel like you did that really helped you perform at your best?
I would say being resilient, man, my grit, and just being overall competitive. Even in some of the darkest times, going through a lot of adversities with my injuries and stuff, I think that I always kept a cool head on a perspective of life. You know what I mean? So I go back and I tell you, 9th grade and 8th grade, 7th grade, this was always my life to be a professional athlete. And the way that I went about it was the same plateau that everybody else that was in my area that I know that went through it. I think some of the challenges and just something that I benefited from was just not giving up. You know what I mean? It was a lot of times that I could give up as far as the type of injuries that I had back to back. Just spending a lot of time on my mental as much as I was spending a lot of time on my body, because as much as the body gets hurt and all that type of stuff, it has a huge effect on the mental aspect of it. And I believe I did a great job of that, staying busy in the off season, taking internships, trying to figure out what it is that I want to do or what it is outside of football, because I slept, bred football from the age of 6 all the way to my junior year and getting drafted. So, and actually after that being a pro, but just as far as, never giving up, you know what I mean, having that resilience, having grit, just you having a lot of discipline, you know what I mean? Discipline is something that, you can't be a professional athlete. You can't do anything without discipline. Anything you want to do, discipline was key.
And so you're saying that one of the things that you think helped you stay on track mentally was your involvement outside of football and focus on internship and kind of helping give you that perspective.
Yeah.
Anything else you feel like specifically with the mental game that you feel like really gave you an edge?
Just taking care of my body a lot, putting the right things in my body, having specific diets, spending a lot of money and just resources on just trying to, compete against the next guy, living in a hyperbaric chamber, as far as in the off season, only training in certain types of weather and stuff like that, like getting real to the grittiness of it and trying to find that edge to beat everybody, because everybody's looking for the next edge. Like you said, everybody's good and everybody wants to outshine the next guy. That's just the nature of, being a professional athlete or athlete anywhere. I just think that you learn things from other guys. You got to be open-minded to learn certain things, learn other guys' failures, look up certain things, and just understanding how you are versus the next person, or how you want to be, or how you want to be perceived, or how you want to go about your business.
And speaking of learning from others, you hear a lot of stories of the rookies coming in and not in quite like a hazing, but obviously one thing that I find really interesting about the NFL is the fact that these are grown men. Yeah. I mean, they're mature. They're not like the college kids going out every weekend. And I mean, they've got kids and lives, and like football is so embedded in them. Like, but they look at it as kind of like a business and an operation. So, do you have any good stories of when you first came in as a rookie that maybe someone looked out for you, or kind of gave you a wake up call, or really pushed you to become the best you could be once you got in the league?
Man, when I came into the NFL, I had a unique situation because I went and got drafted to Tampa, and it was a few years or so. Tampa had won the Super Bowl with John Gruden, and Raheem Morris was the next coach coming in line. I think Gruden had stepped down at the time, and I was drafted there. I was looked at as a guy that was going to come in and be a leader and help change the culture. So I had a lot of pressure as far as to, hey, we need you to do this, but we also need you to lead by example. That was something I was known for as far as, coming through high school, being an All-American and being a starter recruit, just changing the culture and just being a leader and leading by example. So
they were more relying on you to be the guy.
Yeah, it was more relying on me or so, because we were a young team at the time. We had a second-year quarterback in Josh Freeman, and they were just looking for guys to help build the next transition culture in Tampa. But I can't tell you any stories that I know of specifically, but I would say Rondé Barber was very instrumental in my career as far as just leading me on and showing me how to be a true pro.
And what do you think you did then? I mean, with that weight on your shoulders, essentially, like they brought you in with premeditated expectations, essentially. Yeah. How do you think that you handled that, or what were some things that you had taken from all the experience you had in the past to, I mean, the peak of the mountain, like you're at the top level? What do you think you took into that room that was able to help the team and essentially start reinventing that culture that they had asked you to do?
Man, the physicality mindset, as far as, the way that you approach the game, in and out the same way, it's kind of like when you're on a specific or strict diet, you got to fall in love with eating the same thing, eating the bland food.
Like a dog.
Yeah, every time, you know what I mean? So, and loving it while you're doing it. So I think having and just learning how to impose will, just learning how to be a pro, showing how to be a pro, all those type of things, man. I had an instance where myself and Mike Williams was a receiver who was drafted with me, the draft class that came in Tampa, Gerald McCoy. All of us were guys who, were to come in there and help change the culture, and we all banded together and just fed off and just learned from each other's mistakes.
Mm. So, and around this time, I know you and Mariel had been, I think you guys had your first daughter, Ozzy, around that time. So tell us about kind of managing, home life along with that. I mean, I think you and Mariel met at Illinois.
No, we were in Washington, D.C.
In D.C.
Yeah, we were in Washington, D.C.
So tell us about, early years of the family and kind of balancing both and how you were able to do that.
It's a balancing act, especially having kids and just trying to have a career in something that you're passionate about, and, not knowing when to, let up on the gas because you have kids and you're not spending time with them. But it was tough. Mariel did a lot of great work, and she still does at home as far as managing the kids. I'm always out on the road traveling and stuff. But as my career went on, it got kind of hard to keep leaving the family, not being there in the summer, not being there in the spring, and always leaving on a Friday or a Saturday and not returning until late. But it was a huge sacrifice. It was nothing that I wasn't used to, that I haven't done before, whether I was in high school or college. But I just know I had kids, and I had a bigger responsibility than what it was just X's and O's. So I'm pretty sure that helped change me a lot, especially having girls and just, having a different perspective of how I transitioned as my career went on later on.
Yeah, can I ask, too, Mariel, I didn't know you guys were actually together in D.C. as well, and something that people have expressed to me before is, like, even when you have kids, and Brian's talked about this before, is, like, still the importance of your relationship, like, with your wife. Like, some people say, oh, I've got kids, we're dedicated to the kids, that's what it's all about.
Right.
You guys also grew up together, so I can imagine, like, your situation and the things that you've changed over time. Just tell us a little bit more about that and, like, the importance of having that person in your corner, and then how you also tried to focus on your relationship with her as you had all these things going on.
Yeah, it's tough. I understand, and I'm sure she understands that, us being together and us going through all of this while I'm a professional athlete, it comes with some huge sacrifice, and it's going to be some, strains on a relationship as you go on throughout the process, trying to raise a family and trying to be successful in your career path. But it's very important. I know for a fact, I'm not going to say I don't believe, I know for a fact that I couldn't have done it without her. You know, the way how my kids are turning out and, you know, where we are at in life and stuff. So it's huge. It's definitely important for us to, you know, have that alone time as well, you know, taking dates and doing certain things and just, you know, her also being my mental support outside of work. You know what I mean? Somebody that I could come and talk to about, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. I need to do this, that, and the other. What do you think? You know what I mean? So it was always awesome to have somebody at that point in my career too, and just throughout my career to have and say, hey, what do you think about this or that? That wasn't my agent.
Yeah, I can totally understand.
And I know too, especially 8 seasons, and you know, you had with a family and had to navigate some injuries, and I'm sure there's some tough decisions sometimes each year that you have to go through. I mean, what do you feel like kind of helped keep you focused on pursuing your dream?
Man, I think I was meant for it. It's my destiny. I was meant to be in this position and just being a leader and, you know, carrying myself the way that I've always have and always did. Just my character, being a high character person. But I think the things that kept me going was, you know, my family and just personally myself, not wanting to fail. You know what I mean? I always want to be successful and succeed. There's nothing in the world that I don't think mentally or physically that I'm not ready for or, you know, can't do. You know what I mean? So if I put my mind to it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to dominate it. You know, I'm like one of those guys that, you know, if I sit and I meditate on some things and, you know, iron certain things out and put certain things where they're supposed to be, I'm going to go after it. You know what I mean? So it's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. You had that first ACL tear in 2013. So speaking of injuries, take us back to that moment in time, what that was like for you, and then kind of what comes after that as you just deal with it. That was your first major injury, correct? Yeah. So tell us just about that whole process and what that meant for you and kind of some of the things we're already talking about, like just overcoming that.
Overcoming those aspects. It was tough because at that time, my rookie year, I tore my ACL and I tore my LCL against the Seahawks, and it was a playoff game, and I believe that it was pretty much tough because that following season, the off season, we had the first, NFL lockout, so I couldn't train inside the facility in Tampa. I had to put all my trust and faith in somebody that the Bucks that told me to go somewhere as far as to rehab and stuff. I had to put all my faith in somebody I didn't know or anything. And it was my first major injury. And I used a cadaver graft on my ACL, and I ended up tearing it again. And I used my patella tendon the last time, and that's held up straight. But as far as me going through that injury, it was pretty tough because we had to lock out. We couldn't meet with coaches. We couldn't do anything. So all my trust was in somebody I didn't know and I wasn't familiar with. But they did a great job with me, and it's just something that you go through as far as that adversity and learning how to be a pro within all of those elements and all that adversity that you're dealing with and not knowing which way to turn. So I think I kind of tore my ACL at the wrong time too, you know, being as though dealing with the lockout and stuff. So that was something that I definitely learned from as far as being a pro and trajecting on.
Yeah. And looking back on that injury, anything that you would have done differently, anything you feel like you did well, any advice you'd have for someone that goes through something similar with a serious injury?
Yeah. Well, now, you know, time and technology and all this stuff has taken a big step from the last time I tore my ACL. So guys are recovering faster. It's a lot of more, you know, science and research out there. And with all the sports science, where guys can recover and going out to these, you know, fancy, nice places to get all this stuff and injections, getting the blood drawn, spun, and all that type of stuff. So it's a lot of sports science out there now. But I would tell guys, man, you know, I was always a physical receiver, and I played the game physical. And, you know, it comes with the game. You know what I mean? You just got to know how to, you know, take it, process it, and move on. You know what I mean? It's either going to make you better or it's going to take from you.
And in 2015, you would bounce back, and you actually got re-signed to the Jags. So you're with a new franchise in a new area, which is now where Social House is based, and you've been living for a while. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about getting back into a new franchise, new team, and adjusting as well as being back doing what you do best. It
was awesome to, you know, come back and, you know, play. But I chose Jacksonville over Seattle. I don't know, a lot of people don't know that. I had the opportunity to go to Seattle, but I chose Jacksonville. I was already living in South Florida. I was familiar with the Khan family. I went to school with Tony at Illinois, and just, I'm like, man, it's an opportunity. I felt like it was the same situation that I was in when I was, being recruited to go to Illinois. It's the Jags. Nobody wants to go play in the Jags, you know what I mean? So it was one of those situations where, it wasn't, the greatest situation, but I took what, it was for me to go out and get back to competing and stuff, because that's what I truly, really wanted to do.
Yeah, and that was right around when Russell threw the pick on the 5-yard line, too. Was that before or after 2015? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if it was 202014 or around 2016.
It might have been 2014.
So
it might have been before. It might have been
right before. You could have been on the sidelines watching. I'll never forget that video of Marshawn Lynch on the sideline when they throw it. His face, he looks like he's ready to cry. He's like, "What are they?"
I know, man. Why did they run it, man? But every coach has their reasons why. But I'm glad that I came to Jacksonville. It was the better fit for me. And it's definitely showing after the football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And your legendary play Week 6 with the Jags, where you make the sliding catch. He doesn't touch you down, and you run it for the end zone. So kind of paint the picture as far as what that feels like. I mean, what's kind of going through your mind? I mean,
man, well, it feels really good. Not only that I did that, I did it in Chicago, not too far from Illinois. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of Illinois fans there, had a lot of support. But I could tell you that the play was called spread right, XZ pot, and Blake threw it, slide and catch, got up, I wasn't touched, just being aware of football sense and just taking it to the house. And that right there alone, can show you as far as what I'm talking about, as far as just being aware, being a pro, and knowing the situation down the distance and all the type of stuff. I wasn't touched. And just taking it to the house, just doing my job. At the end of the day, doing my job. Every guy does his job. Nothing else matters.
It's interesting too. Just you see a lot of professionals that just don't have that situational awareness.
Yeah.
And it's I know it's something that it's kind of hard to train for, but it definitely gives you a huge edge. For sure.
It definitely does. It's even like now, if I watch some football games, it's hard for me to go to a Jags game and watch it. I get a different perspective. If I'm watching a game at home, it takes me 4 or 5 hours to watch a game, because I'm pausing it, I'm rewinding it, and I'm showing, okay, he did this. I'm like watching film from a bird's eye view, and that's just me as an athlete. It's hard, to not look at it from that perspective. I'm just seeing things. I'm hearing the announcer say certain things, and I know that's not right because he did this. He was supposed to do that. But it's fun, and it's a lot of knowledge that I've gained over the years throughout the sport. But the greatest thing is the people that I've met along the way. You know what I mean? That's something that has propelled me, and that's just way bigger than football.
Mm. And what do you think might have been different about that time with the Jags compared to your first stint with the Bucs? I mean, is there anything? Obviously, Jags weren't necessarily on a hot streak at the time you joined either. So what's that like, just stepping into a new franchise and plus a developing franchise?
It feels good. You know what I mean? It feels good because everybody, when I was on the team that we had in 2017, in the teams before that under Gus Bradley and Doug Maroon, everybody had a chip on their shoulder. It was a place, like I said, if you're in the football world and the NFL world, it's a few teams out here that a lot of people know, hey, I don't want to go to that organization. That organization isn't as good. But you see the total night and day with the organization, what they're doing and with the Jags, man. It's awesome to see, the type of people that they're bringing in here with the culture and just the coaching, everything abroad, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like the hottest spot to go to, but I wanted to do something unique, you know what I mean? I don't want the easy route, you know what I mean? I want to go to some challenges. I want the challenges. I want to beat the challenge.
Yeah.
I love that. And so tell us about, 2018, you make the decision to retire. So tell us about that decision, and then also the decision to stay in Jacksonville, which was a huge decision at the time.
Well, after my playing career, I was going through that transition, but I had already been going through it. Like that previous season, like doing OTAs and getting ready for training camp. After I left, I went down to Miami. I was taking MBA classes at the University of Miami. So for me, I had already been setting myself up because I knew, okay, the end is almost here, and I've had already accepted it, so I'm going to play as much as I can because I've been riddled up with injuries. I transitioned from, I wanted to run my own business. I knew I wanted to run my own business. I didn't want to go into the field of coaching or broadcasting. I just felt like, my unique situation, and like I said, just meeting people, it was one of the huge factors of me just wanting to connect with people that I don't normally connect with. Because, as an athlete, you become isolated, and you have to isolate yourself from all the sacrifices and stuff that you have to make, and not going out. Everybody's partying Friday night, Saturday night. Nah, I'm in the weight room. You know what I mean? I have to go wake up and have my protein shake or this, that. I have to have this meal. I have to watch film. I have to do this. I have to take care of my body, rest, recovery. So, it was a lot of sacrifices that made me just, keep things in order. But all in all, man, one of the greatest things, like I said, is meeting the people, and then just having to transition to coffee. You know what I mean? That was one of the things. I used to take double shots of espresso before every game. You know what I mean? I have a passion for coffee. I love the sustainability of it. I love the community that it brings. And it's a unique drink. It's from the earth, and I just wanted the opportunity to connect with people in the community that has been cheering for me, this, that, and the other, and everything that I went through adversity-wise. I felt as though I had a unique situation to give back and tell my story.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk a little bit more about Social House, but I want to take a small back step, too, into the discussion about community and giving back, finding that purpose outside of sports. You've had multiple different programs to try to invest into the youth. You actually had a financial literacy program in D.C. for a while. Tell us a little bit more about that and what really led you to doing that. I mean, based on your background as well, growing up in D.C. and the situation you were in, is that something that you just saw as like another thing that was your mission? Like this was a part of your destiny. It's like football was it to get me here, but now like I have the means to make this change.
Well, when you go through it, you develop teammates and you develop people that you have passion and love for and respect for, and you've seen how hard guys work. In the game, the game takes so much from you. You don't always reap what you put in. The return of the investment, the sacrificing doesn't always come back. And it's okay. And you know that going into it because you have the love for the game. You respect the game, right? I think the passion to do that, as far as myself, growing up in inner city Washington, D.C., coming from a low-income community, just coming from a situation where, finances isn't top of the game. You know what I mean? You have to think. Guys like myself, you go into the NFL, 3 years after college, and you really don't understand the financial aspect of what you're getting yourself into. You understand the football aspect of it. I'm getting money, this, that, and the other, but this goes back to me understanding and telling you guys the advice I give to kids now with the NIL. You have an opportunity to fail before you go and try and, get to yourself being a career and being a pro. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think growing up in that situation, not seeing people reap the benefit, guys not doing the right things with their money, it happens to all of us. We're young kids, we spend much, and we go back and we reflect. And I've seen guys, lose certain things, this, that, and the other, and I always had a passion for it, and it hurts me because 85% of NFL players go broke after 2 years, and 2 years after retiring, or they suffer from some type of divorce, or you have the mental aspect of it out there with the CTE. We really don't know all the information on that, but I've had guys that I've bled and sweat with and went through things with, and knowing that some of them don't have the resources that they probably should have or anything like that. I just wanted to give it to kids in my inner city, just teaching financial literacy. As far as using Everfi was a company in DC that I used with ed tech and everything. So they had the platform to teach financial literacy in all the DC public schools. So, that was something that was big to me because I felt like financial literacy and money is, to me, is not an exchange. You know what I mean? We get caught up in, money is an exchange thing. I always felt like money is a progressive weapon to do good. You know what I mean? So if people... some guys, if we had that teaching as far as athletes and stuff, we will have a better understanding. Guys need to share more stories on that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask real quick, too. When you came into the league, thinking about you personally, one, what was that like for you to finally get to the league and then obviously, sign a very sizable deal, make a good amount of money, right? So what was that like for you to get to that position? And then 2, was there someone that did this for you, or how did you navigate that process when you didn't necessarily have the answers at the very beginning? Or what was that like for you just to sign your first contract and then be at this position that you've been waiting on, really?
You go through the process, and the process is very volatile. You know what I mean? As far as not knowing who to trust, this, that, and the other, you have these issues that you go with. You know, you pay attention to guys now. The guys don't have the same agent for 3 years or 4 years. Guys are knowing their worth now. I credit guys now compared back to when I was playing. I feel like the average athlete now knows their worth as far as, what they need and what they don't need. But I've had somebody, like a business manager, I have my agents, you have financial people, you always want to, separate the two. Financials over here, my agent. I always felt like my agent don't need to talk to my financial person, right? But just having that and going through that process was it's nerve-wracking. You go through that situation, but you know what you're going to get, you know what I mean? But just navigating through it was tough. Like I said, you're going to have your trials and tribulations going through all of it, but you have resources from the NFL, NFLPA.
Well, it's totally true what you're saying just about the NIL is like your time to make mistakes. I mean, it's wild to think, just like you said, like there were a lot of guys that struggled through college before the NIL stuff. And I mean, we're talking, these are guys that might not have even seen $1,000 in their bank account at any given time. I mean, because most of them can't work. They're so committed to sports. And then you're going to go sign a $900,000 contract and get a direct deposit once a year. That really solidified the whole importance of the NIL thing. It's like, forget about the money they're making. It's the experience that's so important.
Yeah. Because that money, what are you going to do with that money? You can get some material things.
Buy a nice car.
You know what I mean? Go out to a nice place to eat and stuff like that. But you really don't know, hey, let me put money in this account. Let me invest in S&P 500, this type of stuff. You know what I mean? So, later on down the road, if you have somebody there that's for you that can give you that information, that's awesome. But that's something that doesn't always come around. You know what I mean? Because you have everything as far as you being a professional athlete and being in a sport that is so powerful and gravitating to people that, that right there gets overlooked, and people will ask more than they give you information.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, too. I know you talked about 85% of guys end up going broke after 2 years, and really the financial piece is really just a small part of the struggle, because so many guys struggle with, okay, what do I do next? I've spent the last 30-plus years only focused on this one thing. Like, what's my purpose in life? And so, I mean, I remember it was, a few years ago at the there was a fundraiser, and I met you for the first time, and you were, your eyes lit up when you're talking about what you wanted to do next, and you had this vision. You already had the name picked out. So, tell us how you kind of found your purpose and how that came about. I think you had an inspiration from a similar shop in D.C.
Yeah, I had inspiration from shops, but I think one of the things that football has taught me, they taught me to learn how to do my research. So I did my extensive research on what it is I wanted to do, but one of the things that, kind of got in the way of me was I didn't know how to run a business, right? I didn't know the ins and out of a business. So I had to train myself that. I got all that stuff in front of me. I even was going to go in a situation, hey, well, let me go get a job somewhere just to see how it goes, or this is my first job ever. I've never had a job, you know what I mean? So, being as though, I figured out I wanted to do social house, just sitting down. It took me a whole year, when I was just after football, just writing everything down. This is what I want to do, and this is how it is. That was one of the greatest things for me, just figuring out my identity outside of the game, because you can get caught in your helmet. I suffered from it. Just trying to figure out who I am, not Arrelious Benn number 17, because they tell you that you're the best thing since sliced bread, and then that stuff goes away, and then a lot of guys don't always deal with it the correct way.
Yeah, and talking about it being your first job, right? Obviously, NFL star was job one, if you want to call it that. Being a football player was job one. What do you think you were able to take from sports, any certain skills or attributes, and directly apply them to business?
Football was never a job. I loved it.
Never felt like a job.
Never felt like a job. Man, even what I do now doesn't feel like a job. I love it. I love waking up at 5 a.m. I love beating my employees. That's just the, the competitiveness in me. But the attributes that I have taken over from football has just, never given up, man. Having my purpose, having everything detailed, and just knowing and executing. Everything as far as what I learned. If I could go through a training camp, you know what I mean? Like, I use this as an example. The pandemic, right? I opened up the social house right in the midst of the pandemic.
Well, I was just about to ask.
Right?
Like, talk about resilience. Tell us about COVID, because I know that was in 2020, right when you launched.
And, with the COVID thing happening and everything, that was like one of the greatest things that happened to me. Like, I'm one of those type of people, I could find the positive and the negative. There's always a positive and a negative. Every day is a great day. Embrace the suck, right? I figured it out as far as, all right, if I can go through a training camp, right? It's the same. I looked at COVID situations like training camp. You have to wear a certain thing. You have to be a certain way. You have to be here on time. It's certain things that you couldn't do. So I went through everything like, man, it's like training camp. I got to do the same thing over and over. We got COVID restrictions. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're just going to take it one day at a time, right? Just going through that and just learning and going through all my failures and learning how to grow a business and knowing what to do and knowing what not to do. So I think everything as far as football, just having that resilience, not giving up, and respect for coffee, just like I have the respect for football.
Yeah. So we love the social house. It's you guys started the social house at the same time we started Grit Camp, and you guys ended up, doing our food every Tuesday, made sandwiches. We had the chocolate milk and the teas and the signature sandwich, the boa. You got to get it with the egg though. But such a phenomenal concept. So tell us, I guess, what you love about the social house, what makes you guys unique, or.
I mean, one of the greatest things for me is knowing that I'm giving the community clean food and ingredients, you know what I mean, a good product, you know what I mean, something that, as far as somebody who's health conscious, that everything in there is something that's health conscious. Like, I'm not putting a lot of things in there packed with a lot of sugar, bad things, or certain things that doesn't process in the body right, or any type of processed food. I'm big on, eating a wholesome diet, my stomach gut is just as important as my brain, you know what I mean, that they coexist together. But I think just being on her show, turning that from a gun store into a coffee shop was like huge. You know what I mean? We see the whole street of her show just change completely overnight. And not only that, having the opportunity to, just be in the community, upping the value of people's homes around the community by having a coffee shop right down the corner. Just the whole demographic landscape of it and everything. I just want to give back, man. People have helped me get to my dream and supported me along the way. So to me, that's, if I could give that back, that's one of the huge things that I just want to do.
And thinking about now, like giving back, raising your kids, where do you think that most people are maybe falling short isn't the right place to say it, or the right way to say it, but as someone who's come from so little to the NFL to now like reinvesting into these programs, running a business, it's fun to talk to you too, because like you're just like a dad still, it's not like you're very embracing. It's not like talking to some NFL star who's gonna be all like, oh yeah, like Mr. Cool. Just based on all the experiences you've had, where do you think we could move from here to continue to enrich people, like in the things you're talking about? Like, where do you think that we're currently falling short to be doing that around the Jacksonville community and beyond?
I think that's a good question. The unique thing as far as what sports has brought me is like, the whole color aspect, right? Black, white, what this guy has or this guy doesn't have. Like, being in the NFL locker room is contagious. Like, every guy from all parts of the world come together and compete for one goal, right? And as people, I feel like people are important, and even in the community, if we all just come together and just listen to one another and just be mindful of one another, I think people are important. If we just like let things go by and just take the easy route, nothing in life comes easy that we want, right? So we have to just dig into ourselves as far as, understanding that we all are important. It doesn't matter who you are, and what you have. It's life, Totally
agree. I think when I was just talking about that yesterday of Like, I do not care what background you come from, what color your skin, what you identify as, any of this stuff. It's bad people, bad character, doing bad things. Yeah. That's what ruins everything. Like, please, feel free to do whatever you want in this world. But if you're, harming someone else or putting someone in danger or tearing someone down, that's what I got a problem with, right? Yeah. So I tell you, just like everyone coming together, maybe sit back for a second and look, quit talking so much.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. The things that I learned along the way is trust my gut instinct. You know what I mean? A lot of times when, you might have some shady person, this, that, and the other. We all deal with it in life, but I've dealt with it a lot of times than some, just being a professional athlete and people try to be vultures around you and stuff like that. It's just learning that taught me how to deal with people, and it taught me how to know myself, you know what I mean? And it taught me early to make mistakes, but find the positive and the negative, because you can't control everything.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, so many people want to focus on the differences, whereas I feel like the unifying theme is people that share the same principles and values.
Yes.
And I think that's really what, we want to pass on to our kids. And kind of on that note, I did want to ask you, as a, athlete, business owner, entrepreneur, father of 2 daughters. I mean, what are some things you feel like you and Marielle really want to? And I'm sure you're doing a lot of this through the business. I know they help out a good bit too, but anything specific you feel like you really want to build into their character?
I was just telling my daughter, Ozzy, that I told her the key to getting old is staying kid-like. I was like, don't let nobody take your dreams away. I was like, no matter what you go through in life, don't let that keep you from dreaming and thinking that, it can happen. It's okay to be gullible with what you love to do and what you want to do, I think, I always instill in them, you have to fail in order to, figure it out. I said, be okay with failing. You know what I mean? You learn from it and you can, make a better process out of it. But, treating people well, respecting people the way that you want to be respected. That's something that's big in our house. And just, like I said, staying kid-like, still having fun, still doing those things. As much as I get old, I'm still kid-like, you know what I mean? So I just try to keep it in that perspective.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I've been it's like an identity thing too, especially being a younger person and trying to be in business in a room of these maybe older gentlemen, so to say. But I think the unifying thing is really just a dream too.
It's a dream.
Like, I've got friends that are musicians, friends that are firefighters, lawyers, you name it. And one thing that they all have in common is a passion for what they do. Yeah. So, I always try, I'll buy the merch from my buddies in the bands. Yeah. I'll call my buddy that's a firefighter to talk to him about, what he's doing to stay on his game and say thank you for what he does. I mean, he's putting his life on the line every day. But these are the type of people I define as successful, right? Mm-hmm. Because they have a passion, they're pursuing something. So, in your eyes, even just as reference for other people trying to figure out what they're doing, at this point in your life, after doing everything you've done, 5-star recruit, NFL, amazing wife and daughters, business, how do you define this? How do you define success?
Success. I think success starts with, it's internal. You know what I mean? I don't think it's nothing that's external or, like I said, material or anything like that. I think it's servant leadership. Success is servant leadership. Success is, leading when nobody's looking. You know what I mean? To me, that's what success is. People can accumulate things and have certain things by trade or by another person or by a loophole or anything like that. But one thing you cannot, get back is your character. You know what I mean? The way that you carry yourself. And to me, servant leadership is, success. Like how you said, you have the firefighters. That's servant leadership. They're sacrificing something for the whole community, right? Just the sacrifice of myself waking up and making sure I got a right hot cup of coffee for the first customer, or being there on time, making sure certain things are done, or I think that is success. Nothing that's external, all internal. Knowing where you are and where you stand, 10 toes down, that's success.
Yeah, I love that. How about visions, dreams, goals for a social house?
Yeah. I have a lot of visions, dreams, and goals. I'm looking to do number 2, but I want to do it differently. Now I have some experience on knowing how to build out things and knowing where to go and where not to go. So I think just waiting to see how the forecast of the world goes right now with everything going on, just paying attention to that, maybe coming up on a recession or just anything like that with the pandemic may happen. You never know. It's just keeping a mindful eye on that as I build, because my time, the time that I have for it is no time limit. It's, it's not under any stress to produce it or anything like that. I'm on my own time.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe a recession might present a perfect property to you.
Maybe,
too.
You never know.
A little
right?
silver lining in there somewhere. That's the best part about not being in a hurry. The perfect opportunity may present itself. Oh man, sorry. I had one more question for you talking about that. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, they were just talking about last night. I was at a venture capital pitch competition, and they were talking about how this newest generation, from myself, Gen Z, and millennials, down to your daughters, Gen Alpha, we're all 45% more likely to be entrepreneurs or work for ourselves. But for you, that's amazing, because I love working at the coffee houses. Yeah. So that's just one thing I was thinking about as you're talking about. It's like there's definitely a huge opportunity there, especially with what you're doing in the space of like it's welcoming, it's community based. Not to mention the high quality food. Like I don't go to Starbucks for coffee or for food. It's just not. The food they serve is Blackberry garbage. But yeah, that's why I think I really appreciate about what you're doing is just building a place that people can go and frequent and have great products available. So that's an amazing thing for me and people coming up that are going to be working from home and all this whole movement, the Great Resignation. It's going to be a lot of people looking for a social house to go and get work done.
No, for sure. Like how you're saying, that definitely is something that, is a part of the process. Like I said, the great thing about you guys, man, you have an opportunity to see us fail. You know what I mean? You're younger than me. Me and Brian, we up there in low age. We got some good heads. But anyway, as far as being a sponge too, you guys, you got to be a sponge. Take everything in, good or bad, and just process it and learn from it, man. That's one of the things that I've always did. I always learn something from everybody. You know what I mean? It could be somebody, it could be a guy standing outside of a gas station or something. You learn something from somebody, you're going to see it if you pay attention.
Well, I think another important thing, too, to drive home to people is a lot of people talk about, see who you admire and pick apart what the good things are. But another thing I've tried to incorporate recently is the calling out of the people you don't admire. And then even within the people you do admire, there's always, everyone's got their vices, but so you can pick this apart a million ways. But again, even just like you said, at the gas station, it could be a guy outside asking for some money or something. You could take something from that and think about, even if you just had a conversation with him, to see what his story is. But I love that aspect of just being a sponge. And I know you've been to great camp before. Your daughter's both been to great camp, so we really appreciate you coming out. And I remember even at that time, I just enjoyed hearing your story and being able to have that opportunity. I think that's what's really cool about bringing guys out like you during camp is that opportunity for you to drive home everything that we discuss in the sense that these kids will then buy into it just coming from someone of your stature. So
I appreciate that, man. And the kids, the younger generation is our future. You know what I mean? They're we're trying to bridge the gap for them. You guys are trying to bridge the gap for the next, and so forth and so on. So, like I said, people are important. Success is internal. You know what I mean? It's nothing external. So,
yeah. So, like I mentioned, you've been to Grit Camp. Your daughters have been. So, you've heard of our Grit Creed before, which are 12 principles we've really tried to drill home to all the people that we sit down with. And the question we ask everyone on the podcast is, what part of the Grit Creed resonates most with you, and why?
The one that mentions that sticks out to me is I am mentally, physically, and emotionally resilient.
And what about that is just really staying with you? You've actually said resilience a number of times today, so I can just believe it's just that discipline and that grit that has gotten you here today.
Yeah, discipline, grit, and having that warrior mindset, the gladiator mentality. You know what I mean? Just embracing every little thing that comes with it and accepting challenges and never backing down.
Yeah, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, right?
There you go.
All right, AB. Well, hey, we really appreciate you being here today, man. Can't wait to share this episode with everyone. That's a wrap here today at the Grit.org podcast. Please check out our other episodes. Leave us a comment. Tell us something you enjoyed about Arrelious' story. Share it with someone you think it would resonate with or impact. As always, we appreciate you tuning in for another episode of the Grit.org podcast.